Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those subjects I just cannot let go of. It's too important. We're dealing with prophecies given 2,500 years ago that you and I may see the fulfillment of in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. That's where we are right now. It's so important for us to realize that. That's the reason I'm talking about it so much right now. It deserves to be fully discussed and fully understood. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today and see if we can give you a broader scope of what is happening right now. This particular article appeared, it's entitled PA, standing for Palestinian Authority, Recognition of Palestine Will Thwart Annexation. I've watched as Mahmoud Abbas has desperately flailed around to try to stop the Trump peace plan called the Deal of the Century, especially since President Trump made it public on January the 28th of this year. All of a sudden, we realize that the United States is going to approve of Israel annexing 30% of the West Bank, also known as Judea, Samaria. Once Israel does this, then it cannot be reversed, because the only way to reverse it would be to act at the UN Security Council, and that's not possible because the United States has veto power there. As a result, Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinians, is very desperate to head this off within the next 30 days. Now, we're talking about a deadline, and there are articles appearing every single day. Jerusalem Post, Israel National News, Israel Hayam, and many other publications. They're discussing it right now because, well, the cat will soon be out of the bag and it will not be reversible. Let me share some of this with you. Palestinian Authority Cabinet Leader Mohammed Shtayyeh on Wednesday called on countries in the European Union to hurry up and recognize a Palestinian state. Now think about this. What he's saying is you got to do this before July the 1st because it will be too late. Speaking through Zoom with a number of members of the European Parliament, Shtayyeh explained that recognition of the state of Palestine is important to maintain the two-state solution and to fight the Israeli annexation plan. Now, I want to pause right there. It is not important to maintain the two-state solution because the Trump plan actually calls for a two-state solution. It just does not give the Palestinians as much territory as they are hoping to get. It gives them 70% of the West Bank as their own state instead of 100%, which is what they have contended that they must have. So that statement is a little misleading. The article goes on to say, we left the door open to any serious initiative that seeks to revive the peace process under multilateral international sponsorship led by the quartet, as the success of the peace process depends on the existence of a fair mediator, clear and agreed upon principles, a serious partner, and a set timetable. We'll tell you much more in a moment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make sure that we're clear on what we're talking about here. We are talking about the expansion of Israeli-held territory beyond what they held after the War of Independence in 1948-49. Israel has not officially expanded territory outside of the annexation of East Jerusalem as her capital. Other than that, Israel has not officially expanded territory, and it has not been internationally recognized until now. However, with the Trump peace plan in place, the Trump plan is hoping to rectify the settlements. 850,000 Jews live out there. Yet, most of the international community does not recognize that as part of Israel. How do you fix this travesty? Well, that's what the Trump peace plan, called the deal of the century, is attempting to do. Now, let's continue on to paint the picture of what's going on here. The Palestinian Authority is outraged over the coalition agreement between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Benny Gantz, which stipulates that the government can apply sovereignty over Judea and Samaria this coming July. Now, I would remind you that Israel finally settled on a government as of May the 17th. This government is a coalition government between Netanyahu's Likud party and Benny Gantz's blue and white party. They made compromises, they came together. One of the things that Netanyahu insisted on and Benny Gantz gave onto is the annexation of the settlements that will be voted on around July the 1 in the Israeli Knesset. And according to all reports, the Knesset has a strong majority that will be willing to vote for this. When that happens, that part of the West Bank, the part of Judea Samaria, will officially belong to Israel, never to be returned, with the full backing of the United States of America and President Trump. The Palestinian Authority has also condemned the perceived U.S. support for the sovereignty move. The PA Justice Minister recently threatened the U.S. with lawsuits for supporting it. Earlier on Wednesday, it was reported that PA leaders are looking to form an international coalition to block the Israeli sovereignty bid. Palestinian Arab officials have been pressuring countries to officially recognize Palestine in a movement to bypass direct peace talks with Israel. Now, do you get it? Now, finally, Mahmoud Abbas has come up with an idea. He's saying, look, if I can get enough nations to recognize Palestine within 1967 borders and have them do that before July the 1st, of this year, 2020, if they can act first, then we've created a new reality, new facts on the ground. As of right now, we have no indication that Mahmoud Abbas has been successful in taking this step, because everybody that takes this step is flying straight in the face of the United States of America. Everybody in the world knows the U.S. has now formulated this peace plan, and part of that plan is the settlements where 850 Jews live, 850,000 Jews live. They will become a part of Israel. If they don't become a part of Israel, what do you do with them? Do you leave them out there in no man's land? Do they live inside of a Palestinian state? So it's very unlikely that the nations of the world are going to fly in the face of President Trump and the United States of America by recognizing Palestine as a nation within the borders that would be the 1967 borders. Actually, the borders created at the end of the War of Independence in 1948-49. So that's what we're dealing with here. Now, once Israel expands those borders, then the whole world reality has changed from what it was in 1949 to a new reality in 2020. So we're talking about over 70 years of history will now be shifted to cope with the new reality. Now, this next article I found so interesting. It's entitled, "Next Few Weeks Will Determine Whether Future Decades Will See Peace or Bloodshed." Wow, that's quite a title. the next few weeks, the next 4 weeks to be exact, will determine whether the next few decades will see peace or bloodshed. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has spared no effort to salvage the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat said Tuesday, adding he was confident that the Arab world would not allow Israel to execute its plan to apply sovereignty to large parts of Judea and Samaria and the Jordan Valley. Now, did you notice what he said, Mr. Erekat said? He's a central figure, probably the most powerful figure among the Palestinians outside of Mahmoud Abbas himself. And he is saying there's no doubt that our Arab brethren, the nations around us, will stand by us. However, he is in a delusion, as you are going to find out. Erekat further said that Ramallah, which is presently serving as Palestinian headquarters, will seek clarifications over reports saying that many of the moderate Arab states will not challenge the Israeli plan. So he's getting reports that many of the Arab states, such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, those are the key players around the Palestinian territories, that they're not going to challenge the Israeli plan. So now Mr. Erekat, along with Mahmoud Abbas, is going to go out seeking clarification. Now, what normally happens is the Arab states tell them what they want to hear until it comes time to deliver, and then they tell the world community what they feel is in their nation's best interest. Now, listen as we go along. The next few weeks will determine whether the next decades will be ones of peace and coexistence or of violence and war, Erekat warned. Arab sources told Israel Hayam newspaper Tuesday that while Arab leaders were concerned that the unilateral annexation of areas in the West Bank, the Palestinians seek for a future state, would see region plunged into a violent conflict. Behind the scenes, moderate Arab leaders are in no rush to prevent Israel from pursuing the territorial bid. Still, senior officials in the moderate Arab countries made it clear that despite the pan-Arab stance against the annexation plan, behind the scenes, the move is not being challenged as forcibly as the Palestinians might hope. What's that saying? Well, when all the Arabs come together with a meeting of the Arab League, they all fall into the line and nod their head and say, oh, yes, we're behind the Palestinians. However, when push comes to shove, in reality, they are quietly saying to the United States and to Israel, we're not going to stop what you're trying to do. Over the past few months, several Arab leaders have met with senior White House advisor Jared Kushner and U.S. Middle East envoy Avi Berkowitz, who are overseeing the implementation of the U.S. Middle East peace plan. Did you notice? They've been meeting quietly behind the scenes with Kushner and Berkowitz. Now, sources privy to these meetings said that the Arab leaders have, in essence, given the two American officials the go-ahead for the joint U.S.-Israel committee tasked with mapping the areas included in the annexation plan to continue its work despite publicly lambasting the plan. So what's it saying? Publicly, they're fighting against it. Quietly behind the scenes, wink, 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 they are approving this plan. A senior Jordanian official told Israel Hayam, that's the newspaper, that if Jordan suspends or cancels the peace agreement with Israel, it will undermine its position as custodian of the holy Islamic sites in Jerusalem. Jordan holds dear the ability to say, we oversee the Temple Mount. The king also prefers to see Israeli troops near Jordan's western border in the Jordan Valley, which is part of the annexation, over Palestinian forces or a multinational peacekeeping mission, he continued. Now, not only is Israel annexing the settlement areas, but they're also annexing the Jordan Valley, which would separate the new planned Palestinian state from the Jordan River, and just on the other side of the Jordan River is the country of Jordan itself. Well, Israeli troops have been there for the last 70 years, actually 53 years since the 67 war, so they're very used to the Israeli troops being there. They get along fine, and it's really not going to change anything. Now, Jordan's security forces have close ties with their Israeli counterparts, and with all due respect to Palestinian interests, the king cares more about Jordanian interest. He wants to maintain the kingdom's status in Jerusalem and his good relations with President Trump. Now, you see what's working here? The reason I want you to understand this is because we're 1 month away from all of this coming down. 30 days, ladies and gentlemen. The Jordanian official's position is shared by senior security officials in Cairo, Egypt, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and in Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates. These are all the main players surrounding the Palestinians. And all of these people are sharing Jordan's attitude toward this whole situation. So they're all for this annexation, even though the Palestinians are feeling forsaken. A senior diplomat, considered a confidant of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, told Israel Hayam that Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates are coordinated in their unofficial position on Israel's annexation plan. The official pan-Arab position opposes any move that allegedly infringes on Palestinian interests and the Palestinians' right to an independent state, he stressed. However, the Palestinians need to understand that the entire world, especially the Arab states, has undergone great changes since the Khartoum Conference. In case you don't remember what the Khartoum Conference, it met in 1967. The Arabs met together and issued their famous 3 no's. No recognition, no negotiation, no peace. That was the stance they took in 67. Here we are now, 53 years later, and everything has changed. The article says they got to realize the world has undergone great changes since the Khartoum Conference, and recognizing Israel's existence is a matter of fact. It's already done. It's a matter of fact, he explained, referring to the 1967 Arab League meeting in Sudan, that's where Khartoum is, where the pan-Arab group rule for a continued state of belligerency with Israel. With all due respect to the tens of thousands of Palestinians living in the Jordan Valley, Arab states such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates and Jordan will not jeopardize their relationship with the Trump administration for the Palestinians. The Saudi official continued, "We believe that Trump will go on to serve a second term. The Palestinians failed to make the most of the Obama administration, which was sympathetic to their cause and dug in their heels. It is time for Abu Mazen," it's another name for Mahmoud Abbas, "and his advisors to wake up and realize that global and regional interests have changed. If they again miss an opportunity to establish an independent and sovereign state alongside Israel because of the annexation of the Jordan Valley and some of the settlements, they will be left with nothing. Did you hear it? This is a warning from the Arab states that have long supported the Palestinians, but they're telling them, look, this is the last train leaving town. You better get on it, because if you don't, you're going to end up being left with nothing. Now, that's the high drama that we are experiencing right now as we are moving towards July 1st. A senior Egyptian security official told Israel Hayam that modern Arab rulers led by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Saudi Crown Prince, Jordan's King Abdullah, and Persian Gulf rulers see preventing Iran from achieving Shiite hegemony in the Middle East as more important than the Palestinian issue. The United States and Israel are very important players in the fight against Iran. No Arab leader will jeopardize his country's own interest in curbing Iranian expansion for the Palestinians. Well, I'm going to give you as much of the rest of this as I can. Netanyahu says we will move forward with annexation in July. This is the Jerusalem Post a couple of days ago. Israel must seize the opportunity to apply sovereignty to portions of the West Bank in July. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told his Likud faction meeting last Monday as the settler leadership intensified its campaign against a U.S.-supported annexation process. For the first time since 1948, there is a historic opportunity to apply sovereignty in an agreed-upon fashion with the U.S. as a diplomatic sovereign act of the state of Israel in Judea and Samaria. He said, this is an opportunity that should not be missed, Netanyahu told Likud MKs. He has a goal date in July, and we won't change it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what's going on today, and we're 30 days away when all this will culminate right in front of our eyes.